Welcome to Death Row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You don't got, you're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No forget Jesus, people.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I'm back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
Welcome to the MMA for Money Show, episode 38. In this show, we will talk about the event coming to the UFC Apex. Yes, we are finally out of Florida and back into Las Vegas at the UFC Apex, what they've wanted to do this whole time. We're there. I am Bob Boss, your favorite garbage man, at MMA State of Mind on Twitter, here with Mike Copenhaver. You can find him at Don't Cope, Just Win. Also, follow the show on Twitter at MMA4Money Show. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, man. Stoked to be talking about some UFC that's going to go on this weekend. You know, they gave us those 3 events in a row, and then they cut us off, and it hurts, man. So can't wait to see some combat go down and some people get knocked out.
Well, it's Wednesday, so you know what that means. The MMA for Money Show is here. You can find this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, RSS feed. We are also on YouTube for both full-length shows as well as smaller tidbits to get your quick fix. Subscribe, and you will never miss an episode. Like, comment, and share to spread the word to your burgeoning follower accounts. Now, we are going to go over UFC Fight Night Woodley vs. Burns, or UFC Apex, or UFC Las Vegas. The advertising machine that is UFC has not quite gone on where their hashtag will be, but you know what? We're going with the UFC Apex. We're going to do some quick picks on these earlier fights and the ones that we like and or love, because there's at least one or two on here that we absolutely love. We're going to go a little bit more in-depth on. First off, Chris Gutierrez. He is a minus 115 favorite versus Vince Morales. He is minus 105. Mike, got anything specific on this fight, or you just want to do a quick pick?
Not nothing specific, but I'd go with Chris Gutierrez. He just seems to be a little bit meaner and has a little bit more XP.
I agree with Mike. I'm on Chris Gutierrez here, on him as a pick, not a bet. I've liked what I've seen from him here at bantamweight, although I think I remember this fight being up at featherweight. A lot of these weight classes for these fights are a little bit odd given the fact that it's short notice, so they're a little bit all over the place, not necessarily fighting in people's normal weight class. But with Mike, I am picking Chris Gutierrez. Now, we're going to go into a fight here. We talked about we love some fights. There's some fights in here that we love for a couple different reasons. I'm going to throw it to Mike first because Mike is the one that came at me hard with this one. And you know what? I completely agree with him. I'm seconding him, and we're going to bet on this one for sure. So next up, we have Casey Kenny. He is a minus 270 favorite versus Louis Smolka, who is plus 220. Now, Mike, tell me about this fight.
Man, well, this fight's going to be super, super exciting. Even with Smolka getting his ass beat, it's going to be a great match to watch. Casey Kenny has developed an amazing mixed martial arts game, and he's still really young. He has really good striking, and he's got the thing that matters to me most, and that's heart and determination and grit. So, you know, he fought Merab Dvalishvili, or however you say it, last time, and Merab's an absolute animal. There's literally no one that can put out almost more than that old man. And he's not that old, but he's definitely older than these kids, so he's going to be an old man. And so Casey Kenny learned a lot in that fight. He got pushed harder than he ever been pushed himself, and he's going to come in here and absolutely smash Smolka. Smolka's been mentally weak in the past. He's talked about it many times. He's also talked about he's been drunk so many times or blacked out drunk that he doesn't remember what happens. Well, he might be blacked out, knocked out when Casey Kenny whoops his ass. So that's why we're going to be putting down that rare max bet on Casey Kenny to whoop Louis Smolka's ass and get you guys that money.
This is going to be an absolute wrestle fest. Louis Smolka loves to be in the scrambles, but as he goes in scrambles, he puts himself in bad positions, and I just see Casey Kenny just pinning his body flat, not giving him room to move, if anything, just flailing, and he might even get himself open to get a sub, meaning Casey Kenny here, because the type of positions that Louis Smolka puts himself in, he gives up his back to advanced position, and just an all-around just a crazy scramble, but like a not defensively savvy and smart scramble. So I really like, you know what, screw it. We love Casey Kinney in this spot. It's a little steeper than we typically go, but we got plenty more bets on this card, including an underdog and a near even money thing to help balance it out. So if you're a little bit nervous laying the big money, you can back off, but we are very, very confident in Casey Kinney here. So yes, we have a 5-unit max bet on Casey Kinney at the minus 270. Next up, we have Jamal Hill. He is a minus 125 favorite against Klidson Abreu at plus 105. Now, this is a very much like testing kind of prospect situation. They're at light heavyweight. They're both early on in their UFC careers. I mean, Abreu really needs a win here. He beat Sam Alvey, which is great, I suppose. But the split decision his last time out against Shamil, can never pronounce his last name, Gazmatov, and looking bad against Ankalaev earlier. Oh man, he's got some skills there. He absolutely does. They threw him into the deep end fast against some other prospects. I really like Jamal Hill. I would like him to get a bit more experience before I'm willing to put some money on him. This is one of those scenarios where if he was plus money, I would absolutely bet it. But in terms of right now, it's just a pick. I'm going to say that the sweet dreams Jamal Hill keeps his undefeated record going. Mike, how are you feeling about this light heavyweight matchup?
Oh, man. Well, this is going to be a super exciting matchup between these two guys. Both of them have a lot of heart, and they're going to throw some heavy hands, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I really feel like Jamal Hill has more length and more reach, and he's just going to be overall bigger, which will cause a lot of problems for him. And I think that Jamal Hill, he's also never been knocked out, so he means he has a strong chin. Klidson Abreu, he's been knocked out, I believe, 2 times in his mixed martial arts career. And I know it hasn't been recently, but it just means that chink is in his armor. It's still there. And at the upper echelon of the sport, you're going to get knocked out again. So I'd put my money on Jamal Hill for him to not TKO KO Klidson Abreu.
Jumping around a little bit in order here. Minor oversight on my part. Brandon Royval is a plus 145 underdog versus one-time flyweight contender Tim Elliott. He is minus 165. Sorry for the misprint on the odds there in the notes, Mike, but you add numbers wrong sometimes. This is a very, very difficult first fight in the UFC for Brandon Royval. He was supposed to fight in the Contender Series, but hey, UFC needs bodies right now, so he's in there against Tim Elliott, who has wildly more, not just experience, but upper class, upper level experience than he does. Obviously, Elliott is not what he once was, but he still should roll here. The odds are as close as they are because Tim Elliott hasn't looked that good, and Royval has, other than the huge degree in who they've fought. There could be an upset here. Who knows if Elliott has actually fallen off that dramatically? But for a pick, I would go Elliott here just from the things I know for certain about him. Mike, how are you feeling about this flyweight fight?
Oh, man. Well, anytime Tim Elliott fights, it's definitely going to be exciting because he's going to put on a pretty decent performance. And I really feel like that Tim Elliott has more experience, and he's been through the ringer with so many of these upper echelon guys. He's learned so much, and I just don't see how he's going to keep up with Tim Elliott and all he's learned and the cardio that he's developed for 3+ rounds. Tim Elliott is really good. Brandon Royval armbarred his last opponent, and the dude was 29-18. So it's like, who's that and what is that? So I really don't take any merit to what he's done. I need to see him perform, and so I'm going with the OG like I usually do, and Tim Elliott would be the OG in this spot, so I'd take him.
We always are 100% blunt and honest on this show, and I will bluntly and honestly say I do not know the next two guys fighting. I will give you some brief information on both, half in jest and half serious, and I will make a pick, but do not take this one overly seriously as I do not have much experience with either one of these guys. So Billy Quarantillo is the minus 155 favorite. He's fighting against Spike Carlisle, also known as the Alpha Ginger. Extra bonus points for that name. They are, I believe, both making their UFC debuts. Never mind. Not the Alpha Ginger. Either way. Really, I got much to get, not much on here. I'm going to pick the Alpha Ginger because the name and his current UFC photo looks like he should be wearing like a fancy suit and having a cocktail in New Orleans, talking with all kinds of accent. I don't know if any of that's even remotely true, but I'm enjoying the visual. So again, with almost no information backing it, I'm going to go with the Alpha Ginger. Mike, do you have anything specifically on either of these guys? Since I clearly do not.
No, man, I really don't even know who either of these guys are. I've never heard of them. I never heard of them being hyped up, and I have no clue why this matchup's coming. But we're gonna see what one of them's about. So I hope it's fun because it just is blah.
From what I have heard about them, it should be a fun, entertaining fight. Again, other than you might want some dog juice, don't follow my pick on that one. That's just going by names, look, and just sheer entertainment value. Next up, the first female fight of the night, we have Antonia Shevchenko, who is minus 135 favorite, versus Caitlin Chukagian, who's plus 115. I'm very, very surprised by this line. I do think could be close because they are both predominantly strikers. Chukagian does have a better ground game, a more well-versed ground game. I don't know what's the difference between this Shevchenko and her sister. I guess from what I know of their history is, although the dominant champion sister both did ground and competed in MMA all throughout, Antonia here pretty much stuck with just Muay Thai and obviously transitioned later, even though she is the older sister in this mix here. Caitlin Chukagian, obviously she didn't look great in her title bid, but I just think she's all around better here. I do think she's the better, more versed striker. Yes, it's going to be a lot of grunting and loud noises as this fight goes off, either from the corner or from the actual fighters themselves. I actually really, really like Chukagian here, especially at dog money. Obviously, this fight is likely to go to decision. I mean, the goes to decision right now is minus 490. So I guess if you want to get real specific on one of these fighters for a little bit of extra juice, but you know what? We're going to bet Chukagian straight here at plus 115. I think she has a really good chance here. It may be close, but I think it's going to be clear for Chukagian. Mike, do you follow my sentiment? Are you here with me? Or do you think that Shevchenko light might actually do something?
I mean, no, man. Shevchenko light is not going to do something. We all talked about this. There's only one good sibling when it comes to pairs in the UFC or in MMA, and she's not it because Valentina's the it. So I think that Chukagian has equal, if not better, striking at boxing than Antonia, and I know for sure that Antonio is not a Renzo Gracie brown belt. There's no way that Shevchenko wants to be on the ground with a brown belt from Renzo Gracie team. I don't see why they are even in the same realm on the ground. Striking, yes, it could be very, very even, but on the ground, I see it clearly for Chukagian. I think that this is a rare chance where Chukagian could show off her jiu-jitsu and maybe get a submission, which she's never really done. I don't believe. And I think she's far superior. So I think that the right play would be Chukagian by decision. I see her winning it 9 times out of 10, and we'll see this weekend. But I definitely, we're putting down that 1 unit bet because it's well worth that money and the experience of Caitlin Chukagian and that brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Next up, we have Mackenzie Dern is a massive minus 430 favorite against Hannah Cyphers, who's plus 345. This is a very clear, let's get Mackenzie Dern more wins. Let's market Mackenzie Dern. We need to give her a win. After all, she's coming off a loss, but you gotta give her a win. Because that cachet. She did lose last time out against Amanda Ribas, and actually, Mike, feel free to jump in here. If I remember right, didn't you bet Amanda Ribas versus Mackenzie Dern in that fight?
Yes, we did. We had Ribas all day winning.
That's what I thought. So we actually called that one. So awesome. I could have sworn, but it's going far enough ago. This is going back to October. So we've had quite a few months since then, but that was a quick fight for Mackenzie Dern post having a baby. There was actually a surprise if she would make weight, if she was coming back too fast, and I do think she was coming back too fast. Even if she didn't, Amanda Ribas could have likely got the victory there. I guess we will never know unless they rematch down the line. But Mackenzie Dern came back too fast, got that loss. She had 2 canceled bouts that were supposed to happen on the same day in April, one of which was Hannah Cifers. They really wanted to get Mackenzie Dern that bounce back win. So they're making this fight happen. They absolutely are making this fight happen. These odds absolutely reflect it. Nothing against Hannah Cifers. She's strong. She absolutely is. She, like, physically wise, but just skill for skill, Mackenzie Dern's going to get a sub at some point. I don't see why not. She does have a little bit of hands, although her striking defense is somewhat suspect. Hannah Cifers, I mean, she has a submission loss to Jillian Roberts. She's been finished 2 times after that by strikes. By Angela. I mean, we like Angela Hill a lot, but she's not a devastating finisher. I mean, the other finish was to Macy Barber, which makes a little bit more sense, but I don't know. She's a tough out. She's strong. If Mackenzie Dern wasn't as high caliber of a submission artist and was just adequate, I mean, black belt for sure, but adequate, I might want to take the dog money because Hannah Cifers is just strong enough to keep her off of her and maybe land something good and or just pin against the fence. But I don't know. I think this is kind of Mackenzie Dern does whatever she wants whenever she gets a hold of her. So I guess she might get her coming in, but no bet whatsoever. This is way too steep for something to possibly happen, but pick Mackenzie Dern by whatever method she wants. I'll say I'll just go rear naked choke. Simple RNC. Mike, to make this more interesting, like I went with here, since I would assume you're with me on Mackenzie Dern for the pick, not for the bet, but for the pick, say how you think she'll finish it, like submission or what submission type, or I guess even TKO. Where do you think it's going to happen?
Oh man, well, Mackenzie Dern's definitely gonna whoop this chick's ass, and Mackenzie Dern's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Hannah Cifers is a purple belt. They're 2 total different worlds when you're in the Jiu-Jitsu game, and if anyone's rolled on the ground and as a purple belt with a black belt, it's not close. So I don't see it being close. I want to say Mackenzie Dern's going to win by sub, right? But that's too obvious and too blatant. So I feel like she's going to get her in a bad position on the ground and end up landing damaging elbows or strikes that will cause the ref to stop it, and it will, throw everyone off in the sense of they wanted a sub, and it will be a TKO KO on the ground when she could have subbed her if she wanted.
Well, as of right now, those odds are not released. Strictly goes to decision, the over, the under, everything like that is out, but we do not have anything for specifically TKO. But if you're starting to lean that way towards Mike, it might be worth it, because currently Dern inside the distance is minus 188, so you're already getting quite a bit below what her odds are as at the minus 430, and I would only assume, it's not out yet, but I would only assume that by TKO KO would be in the plus 200 or higher range, and sub would likely be minus 150, somewhere in there. That might be wildly off, but I would see as TKO KO being at decent plus money. Not crazy, but decent plus money if you're having that inkling like Mike. Who knows? Maybe it'll be crazy high. You never know with odds makers sometimes, but the finish can come. Next up, we have Brock Weaver. He is a plus 260 underdog, for those of you who might be shocked, given that he had been such a huge favorite in the past. He is fighting Roosevelt Roberts at minus 320. Roosevelt go getta Roberts. Not sure if that is a Dragon Ball Z reference or if that is just an abbreviation for something. I'm going to go with the Dragon Ball Z reference because I am a nerd like that. Well, Brock Weaver is coming off getting a victory. He got a legally kneed and ended up with the victory in another fight that he was a dramatic favorite in. I think people are starting to realize he might not have the exact chops we all thought he was going to. He just, I can't remember who I heard the breakdown, but I heard a breakdown from somebody that said, as much as people like him, he does not have the talent or the resume that warranted so many people being so high on him. He had a lot of split decisions, not an overly great finisher, got finished a lot earlier in his career. and he was good on a win streak, but it wasn't a overly impressive win streak. I mean, he does have a decision loss in bare knuckles to Joe Riggs, but people were super high on him. I wasn't high on him. I picked him, I believe, in his debut, thinking that he had hype behind him, but not knowing much about him. I have seen Roosevelt Roberts fight a few times within the UFC. I have been impressed with what I have seen. I think he has more tools, and I actually do think he will get a finish here. As Brock has shown, he's susceptible to dangerous positions, and I just like Roosevelt Roberts' finishing instinct. No bet at the minus 320 for Roosevelt Roberts, but that is my pick. Mike, how are you feeling about Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver?
Well, man, this should be a pretty exciting fight if Roosevelt Roberts shows up the way that I think that he can. He's young, he's long, he's talented, and when he wants to be deadly, he can be. It's just he's one of those guys that does he want to turn it on or not? He's fought some really tough guys, and he's won versus some, and he's lost versus one tough guy named Vince Pichel, who's from my hometown. That's a super tough dude. So Roosevelt Roberts has everything to win this fight. Brock Weaver definitely is not the superior mixed martial artist. The only way that I could see Brock Weaver possibly winning a fight is if he wrestle fucks Roosevelt every round for 3 rounds, and it's absolutely the most boring thing you've ever seen. That's really the only way that I could see it going the other way. But I would go with Roosevelt Roberts by TKO KO. Any way he wants to do it versus Brock Weaver, it's going to be super stoked.
Now, the next fight has a little bit of sadness. We were going to see a rebound fight. I guess not a rebound fight because he won his last fight. Kevin Holland was going to step in and fight Daniel Rodriguez at 170. You might be asking, what? He's middleweight. And long time, at least within the UFC, middleweight. But for a long time before that, he actually fought at welterweight. But as of today, I think it was this morning, possibly yesterday morning, we ended up with an injury. Although my nose is going off thinking that he just wasn't going to end up making weight, and rather than upset the UFC brass on not making weight, man, he's injured. Rats. I mean, as bad as that sounds, that's the smart thing to do, because if you miss weight and you miss weight bad, the UFC has a tendency to either blackball you, make you wait for another fight, or your next matchup is substantially harder than it was supposed to be to try to get you in a loss. So I think he backed out because of that. I was actually really excited, him versus Daniel Rodriguez. His odds were a bit crazy. Originally, he was supposed to be, Kevin Holland was supposed to be a minus 220 favorite over Daniel Rodriguez at the plus 180. I wouldn't have laid that because I think people were we were fans of Kevin Holland as we made money on Kevin Holland, but I thought that people were just jumping on that he recently got a finish. I thought that fight was a little bit closer than the odds would have indicated, but now we are here with Daniel Rodriguez still on the fight card at the 170 fighting a Gabriel Green, who is a lightweight. I don't got much for you on Gabriel Green. I don't know much about him. His nickname's Gifted. He's 9-2 pro MMA. He has at least one fight in Bellator, 2 fights in Bellator, but he was more of a regional guy that get brought in to fill up a card, as Bellator would tend to do. I do not recognize his camp. I know nothing about this guy. There are no odds on it. I would assume when there are odds, Daniel Rodriguez is going to be a massive, massive favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and break the suspense and say my pick will be Daniel Rodriguez, and hopefully after this fight, after this quick finish, they could rebook the Kevin Holland fight for the future when everyone can make weight. Mike, what are your thoughts? Do you think that my idea of the miss weight possibility is way off? Do you think he's actually horribly injured? Kevin Holland, that is. Do you know anything about this Gabriel Green? And do you think Daniel Rodriguez just smashes?
Yeah, man, I'm super sad that Kevin Holland isn't going to fight because he's super exciting when he does show up. So I thought this fight was going to be a banger, man. I really was kind of favoring the chance that the underdog Rodriguez, he's a southpaw, he strikes pretty well, and he Hispanics generally have really good gas tanks that you can count on and good chins. So I really thought it might have been a trouble situation for Holland. But like you said, he's cutting weight, going down. He just had a fight. The injury thing is very, very slim to none chances, dude. It's so slim that it's not even funny. I mean, what do you mean you're training? What are we doing? You're training? You're not training, bro. Training camp's over, bro. You just had a huge training camp. You just fought and won. You won in like a minute. I mean, what do you need to do? Run on a treadmill and fucking... That's it, dude. I mean, I don't get it. So like you said, I think that you were more spot on with the fact that he was probably having trouble missing weight, and that was the better excuse to not kill his star or take the shine out of a star. So, but I think that Daniel Rodriguez is definitely going to roll here. He's a southpaw, like I said. He's got a front straight kick that's pretty good to keep the distance, and then he crack you with a straight left. So I like the kid. I just don't know if he's got enough experience, to see the Kevin Holland. If he could beat Kevin Holland or higher, he's definitely going to beat this kid that I don't even know who's this green is.
In the co-main event, we have Augusto Sakai. He is a minus 115 slight favorite versus Blagoy Ivanov, minus 105. I was a long time fan of Blagoy Ivanov. I loved watching him in Bellator. Ever since he had his near-death experience where he was brutally stabbed. For those of you who don't know that story, look it up. It's pretty intense reading it. And honestly, just the fact that the dude survived. His big selling point was he had beat Fedor back when Fedor was something in a competitive Sambo match. And he just never came back all the way to what he was pre-near-death experience. Hung out in Bellator for a little bit, then was in WSOF. He had one fight when it was PFL. Beat some names over there. I mean, he has not impressed me much in the UFC. He had a very close fight his last time out with Derek Lewis, as Derek Lewis fights tend to be. If there's not a Derek Lewis finish, he lost by split. Low output fight. Boring. Absolutely boring, in my opinion. He had a little bit of a run going there. He did fight Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell coming off his USADA suspension the first time back. Rothwell looked awful. I'm not just trying to find ways to justify saying that Blagoy Ivanov isn't as good as I once thought. I just don't think he is. Whereas Augusto Sakai has looked phenomenal. He is big, long, fast, good output, good finishing ability, will put it on you when he gets you to the brink. Like when he just fought Marcin Tybura, just got that. As soon as he saw him hurt, he laid it on, but it wasn't the reckless laying on like how Shane Carwin used to have. Where, I mean, Shane Carwin hit harder, but would just like put everything there, which eventually will bite you if a guy can kind of survive. Each follow-up shot by Sakai was formulated and hit in the exact spot he wanted to, until Tybura eventually just fell down. I am utterly impressed with this kid. He's young enough. I'm not saying he's going to be a champion. That's obviously saying a lot, but I don't know. At heavyweight, you only need to finish a couple somewhat names, and they're going to thrust you into a title shot. But I could see him as a solid stick-around top 5, top 10 guy for the foreseeable future. So we really like Sakai here, but I'm going to throw it to Mike before we say anything further on this matchup. So, Mike, Augusto Sakai, Blagoy Ivanov.
Oh, man. Well, I like Augusto Sakai a lot here. I think that he's much bigger. He's 6'3". Blagoy's like 5'10" at best. He's going to give up a good size to Augusto after he cuts weight. And Augusto hits really, really hard. He's younger. I just believe everything just points to Augusto being the better combatant. Blagoy's boring. I just don't see any upside to him at all. So I really think that the longer, stronger, younger Sakai could come in here if he's super aggressive and just end Blagoy's night. Blagoy's lost before. He'll lose again. And Sakai's still super, super talented. He's only lost, I believe, one time, and it was not by knockout or anything like that. It was a decision, I believe. So Augusto Sakai should win this fight easily. That's why I'm going to pick him as my bet and be throwing down what's the odds at right now?
He is currently minus 115.
So we'll be throwing down the 1.15 units to make 100, and we'll cash in that bet once he knocks that old man out.
In the main event, yes, I am keeping my promise that I promised all of you last week. If you need to go back and quick listen to the last 3 minutes of the show, go back and do it. Both me and Mike, we vowed, we promised you that we would not bet. That we would not bet on this fight. That we would not bet on Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley. And you know what? We're keeping our damn promise. I'm not betting anything with Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley. No way, man.
Fuck that bait.
Oh, no way. No way. I have made so much money on both of these men as underdogs. And I have lost money more recently on each one of them. Because I jumped off the train too early on Burns and I held onto the train a little bit too long on Woodley. But I am staying away from this fight till I see where these guys are at. I am not 100% sure how Burns will do against the upper echelon at welterweight. I do think that Woodley's wrestling can give him fits, and he can't do the same things that he's done to other guys at welterweight that he can do to Woodley. Remember, this goes back to part of the reason that we're betting on Sakai as well. Being at the apex, this is in the smaller octagon, which is substantially smaller and leads to more finishes. So if the guy that you like is more likely to get finished or to finish, bet accordingly. It's another 10 to 15% higher chance of finishes in the smaller cage. And of the two that's going to get the finish, it would be Woodley. He's got that power. He doesn't throw a lot, but he's got that power. I'm just going to pick Woodley here, but I do not have a bet at all on this one. Mike, where are you at for the main?
Well, man, it just seems like there's so many Tyron Woodley haters out there that they just forget how good he really is and how many fight camps he's had in the upper echelon of the sport. I mean, he's fought world-class jiu-jitsu artists like Damian Maia. I mean, well-rounded fighters like, I believe, McDonald. There's just so many people that he's fought that he has gained skills from. Gilbert Burns is super talented. I love his jiu-jitsu. He's got some random power, but his striking still is not there to me for the upper echelon. So I just think that Tyron Woodley has been here too many times. He has been doubted too many times, and if he wants to go in there and murk someone, that he could do that because his wrestling is well-rounded and he's got super heavy hands, and I believe he's a better striker than Burns, and I just don't see Burns getting him down easily. So I'm going to go with Tyron Woodley by TKO KO, and I just really believe that Tyron Woodley will get this in the main event.
Now, quickly going over our bets for this card in case you missed them earlier. We have a 5-unit max bet at minus 270 on Casey Kenny. He's going to absolutely wrestle and destroy Louis Smolka, maybe even get us up. We have 1 unit on Caitlin Chukagian at plus 115. And we have to win 1 unit on Augusto Sakai at minus 115. Now, quickly before we close, I want to let everyone know out there, we talked about it last week. Obviously, past guest of the show, Ken Shamrock, a new book has come out about him. His book, Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Man. Me and Mike are in the process of getting through that book. We've talked to Ken. He wants to come back on and go deep on that book, go further than maybe even the book goes, give his perspective on what's going on. So if you haven't yet bought that book, buy Ken's book, read Ken's book. You will get more out of that interview when it happens, when you know all the particulars. Now, before we sign off for the night, Mike, do you have anything else left to tell the people, or anything going on in your life, anything about Ken or upcoming events or upcoming fights that you need to get off your chest?
No, mostly you just hit on the nose there, talking about the World's Most Dangerous Man and his new book coming out. I mean, if you're an MMA fan, new or old, you need to go and read that book and catch up on the legend and all the stories that go deep back in time. It's really super exciting, and it's just important for you to learn as a fan. Just go read the book, and if you guys got some special questions, we'll be one of the only podcasts that will have the exclusives with Ken Shamrock, probably about a 3-part series, so we could go in depth over his book. So if you want your your question answered, try to hit us up on Twitter, and we will try to add your question into the podcast for fun. And we just appreciate all you guys always listening to us. We can't thank you enough for standing through with us through all the time, from the beginning with no audio, good audio, to what we have now, and just we'll get better and better and cash these bets for you.
Yes, and we will give you guys an update on when we have a specific date for when all that stuff is going to go on. But you know what? It's a big book. It's actually quite a fast read. It's a page turner. I'm not done yet, but it goes pretty quick. But it's about like 594, I think, in terms of pages. But it goes pretty quick as you read it, because there's just so much going on in it. But we will be back next week. Yes, there are more fights on the horizon. UFC 250 is June 6th. We got some title fights. We got a pay-per-view. Kind of a lackluster pay-per-view, but who knows what might get added to it between then and now. Now, don't forget to subscribe to us on your platform of choice: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Podcast, just a straight RSS feed. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube for both full-length shows as well as smaller tidbits of the show. Like, comment, and share. And with that, let's roll.